Dear Thally and your YouTube psychic. Card of the day. Readings. Unboxings. Your daily source for things arcane.
I do have to give a disclaimer. We'll be talking about Jack the Ripper, murders, serial killers, decomposing bodies. So if this is something that does not interest you, then skip this video. Also, another disclaimer. These are suspects and not convicted murderers in the Jack the Ripper case. So they are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And this is, again, not a court of law. This is my spare bedroom. So, enjoy the video. Alright, these lovely gentlemen are some of the suspects. There are well over 100. But the ones that are listed here are some of the most notable, the most commonly known as Ripper suspects, and some of them were convicted of other crimes such as murder and assault and so on and so forth. So the concentration of the killings around weekends and public holidays and within a short distance of each other has indicated to many that the Ripper was in regular employment and lived locally. Others have thought that the killer was an educated upperclassman, possibly a doctor or an aristocrat, who ventured into Whitechapel from better areas of town. Such theories draw on cultural perceptions such as fear of the medical profession, mistrust of modern science, or the exploitation of the poor by the rich. Suspects proposed years after the murders include virtually anyone remotely connected to the case by contemporary documents, as well as many famous names who were never considered in the police investigation, including a member of the British royal family, an artist, and a physician. Everyone alive at the time is now long dead, of course, and modern authors are free to accuse anyone without any need for any supporting historical evidence. Suspects named in contemporary police documents include 3 in Sir Melville Macnaghten's 1894 memorandum, but the evidence against these individuals is at best circumstantial. There are many varied theories about the identity and profession of Jack the Ripper, but authorities are not agreed upon any of them, and the number of named suspects reaches over 100. Despite continued interest in the case, the Ripper's identity remains unknown, and the term Ripperology was coined to describe the study and analysis of the Ripper cases, and the murders have inspired numerous works of fiction. For well over 100 years since the time of the Whitechapel murders, the identity of the killer has been hotly debated, with over 100 suspects having been named in the process. While many theories exist, some more advanced than others, none of them have proven to be indisputably convincing. Macnaghten named Ostrogue as a suspect, but researchers have failed to discover any record of violence or assault in Ostrogue's criminal past, his most serious offense being fraud and theft. Prison records discovered by author Philip Sugden showed that Ostrogue had been jailed in France for petty offenses during the time of the Ripper murders. In his memorandum of 1894, Sir Melville Macnaghten listed Michael Ostrogue among his 3 prime suspects, describing him as such: Michael Ostrogue, a Russian doctor and a convict, who was subsequently detained in a lunatic asylum as a homicidal maniac. The man's antecedents were of the worst possible type, and his whereabouts at the time of the murders could never be ascertained. Ostrog was last known to be alive in 1904, but the precise date of his death is unknown. And again, since he was a convicted felon, this is why he wound up on the suspect list. However, he was already in jail in France at the time of the Ripper murders. So, this poor man was not the one. Ooh, girl, look at this dude. Now, this is John Piser. Piser was arrested by Police Sergeant William Thick on September 10th of 1888, after the respective murders of Mary Ann Nichols and Annie Chapman. Known as Leather Apron, Piser was a Polish Jew who worked as a bootmaker in Whitechapel and was believed by Thick to have committed a slew of minor assaults on prostitutes. Although the investigating inspector in the early days of the Whitechapel murders had stated that there is no evidence whatsoever against him, many locals suspected Piser, aka Leather Apron, was the killer. Piser was later cleared of suspicion when it was realized that he had alibis for 2 of the murders. He'd been staying with relatives at the time of one of the canonical 5 murders, and was talking with a constable while witnessing a raging fire on the London docks at the time of another murder. Having known Thick for years, Piser claimed that he had been detained by police as a result of Thick's animosity towards him, rather than any substantial evidence, although he did have one prior conviction for a stabbing offense. There really wasn't any concrete evidence that would suggest Piser was the Ripper. Being absolved from any suspicions of guilt, Piser was able to obtain monetary compensation from at least one media source that pegged him as the murderer. The arresting officer, Police Sergeant Thick, was later accused by H.T. Hasselwood of Tottenham in September 10, 1888, letter to the Home Office. The accusation was dismissed as having malicious intent and without just cause. Now also, with this time period, there was a fair amount of anti-Semitism and anti-immigration. So at this time, it was not uncommon for immigrant Jews to be pointed at and say which. So in this case, I can see where Mr. Piser would have sued pretty much anyone and everyone that was basically coming out and saying he is the Ripper. 2 of the murders he has an alibi for, and the other 3, who knows? Because he was not at the other 2 murders, then it goes to say he was not part of the other 3, since they were all 5, the canonical murders, I should say, all 5 of those were pretty much committed by the same person, allegedly. And this poor guy, James Thomas Sadler, one of the biggest cases of being at the wrong place at the wrong time, in this instance as far as the Ripper case goes. So it soon transpired that Frances Cole's companion, the night she had disappeared or was murdered, had been James Thomas Sadler, a 53-year-old merchant seaman and fireman on the SS Fez, whom she had met in the Princess Alice pub on February 11th, 2 days before her murder. Sadler was a former client of hers, and after a few drinks, they decided to spend the night together. They spent most of February 12, 1891, on a pub crawl around the area, and by evening both of them were extremely intoxicated. At around 7:30 p.m. that evening, Frances turned up at Milner's shop at 25 Nottingham Street, where she bought a black crepe hat, paying for it with two S and 6D that Sadler had given her some hours before. According to Peter Hawkes, the man who served her, Frances was 3 sheets in the wind. Leaving the shop, she had, according to Hawkes, gone off in the company of a man who had been looking through the window whilst Coles was in the shop. Hawkes would later pick Sadler out of a lineup at the Lehman Street police station as the man she had gone off with. Now, he was arrested, but then the case against him fell apart. Sadler was able to prove that he indeed had been mugged, and that he had not actually been with Frances Cole in the hours before she was murdered. When it was also revealed that his knife was probably too blunt to have inflicted the wound on Cole's throat, the case against him collapsed. He was able to prove that he had been at sea some of the other murders had occurred. In early March 1891, the director of public prosecutions wrote to Sadler's solicitors informing them that herein and the application will be made to permit the adoption of this course. On Tuesday, 3rd March 1891, Sadler again appeared before the magistrate. The prosecution told the court that having had the advantage of a consultation with the learned Attorney General, who carefully considered the evidence given in the course of the inquiry before the coroner, as well as the most able summing up of the jury impaneled before him, and having regard to the verdict returned by the jury, after a patient and exhaustive inquiry, I do not propose, on the materials at present in our possession, to proceed further with this prosecution. And, sir, if it should meet your approval, it will have the sanction of both the learned Attorney General and of the Treasury's authorities that no further evidence should now be offered against this accused. End quote. Good grief. That was a lot. So, he was released and, of course, dropped from the investigation. Again, this is a case where most likely the accused became an accused because of his association with a quote-unquote known prostitute. Again, you guys know my feelings on prostitution or sex work in general. You do what you have to, or you do what you enjoy. I myself am not a porn star or a prostitute, but, in my younger days I was a stripper. So, I'm fine with it. You do what you do when you do it because you have to, or because you want to, or you enjoy it. So, this is the end of this video. We're going to keep going because we've got several more to go. Thanks for watching and have a great day.
Thanks for watching today's video. Don't forget to subscribe to my content and like this video. Want more? Feel free to order your own personal reading at www.tirthalion.com. That's TIRTHALION. Don't forget to click the bell icon so that you're notified every time I upload a